an era I would recommend you start entering today. When none of your friends or anyone you know is down to do the things you really want to do, enter your solo era. Start going alone. I am taking this era to the max. I am going to go to Coachella solo this weekend for a weekend too. And I'm really excited to see what that experience is going to be like alone. And honestly, this is the biggest regret I had in my 20s was that I waited for people to do things and I just skipped out on so many things. If there's one thing I wish I would have done sooner is to get really comfortable doing things alone.
One of the biggest mistakes I've made in my 20s is waiting for the right time. Whether it was dropping new music or starting a new hobby or asking out a girl that I'd been speaking to for a while, I always had a set of variables in my head that had to be in place to create the perfect opportunity for me to take action. I needed a certain amount of money. I needed a certain amount of support. I needed a certain amount of free time. What I didn't realize is as I was waiting for these things to fall into place, the season for me to actually take action was slipping away. I eventually didn't drop that song because it just didn't reflect how I felt all those months later. I couldn't start that hobby because the centre that actually offered the hobby in my area closed down. And the girl I wanted to ask out got asked out by someone else. She said yes, they're in a relationship and they're probably going to get married. All I'm saying is from my experience, 9 times out of 10, there's no such thing as the right time. Take action now and whatever happens, happens.
It is 6:30 on a Friday afternoon and I'm sitting here at my desk working. And I am just thinking about just the amount of work that I have been putting in. And the sleepless nights, I literally work until 5 a.m. in the morning, sleep, wake up at like 9, do it all over again. And I'm just constantly in this like cycle. That is just so exhausting. I am bone tired, like I'm so tired. And I'm just sitting here just like catching myself working. And I'm just like, girl, you have been working so hard. I hope this time around it'll be worth it. And this has been very like heavy on me because I turned 30 this year in November, and leading up to my 30th birthday, I was reflecting on my 20s and just all the work that I've been putting in and all the things that I've been doing. And I came to the realization that I have worked so hard in my 20s, but I have nothing to show for it. And I know this sounds bleak and sad and whatever, but I just feel like it's my truth. And the reason why is because in my 20s, I was a chronic side hustler. I would try and do many different things at a time to earn extra income. And yes, I did make some money, but I didn't really see a specific thing to like fruition or see it through fully to really reap the benefits. What I mean is I would start something and then move on to something else, and I feel like that was like my 20s where I was just pivoting, starting things and changing my mind and changing the course of what I was doing consistently. And also in the things that really mattered to me, I never really stuck it through and became consistent. And so I felt like my 20s was spent being busy but not being productive and not sowing the seeds that would matter later. And now in my 30s, as a 30-year-old, I feel like I'm starting from scratch and I am working hard. I am no stranger to hard work. I don't mind working and putting in work. It's just now questioning, is this hard work that I'm doing now going to be worth it? Because I can't catch myself in my 40s and kind of have the same feelings I'm feeling now on how I spent my 20s. And so it's been heavy on my heart, and it's 6:30 on a Friday. And I'm inundated with work. I've got just so much work to do, and it's just something that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking that God, like I can't have a repeat of my 20s. So I'm using the learnings from my 20s going forward, but also there's that fear of, is this gonna be worth it? Yeah.
Since I just turned 30, here are some things in my 20s that I fully regret. One of the biggest things I regret about my 20s is I just let things affect me so much, whether it was Mean Girls, whether it was feeling left out. I felt like I put so much energy in the wrong places, and sometimes even that was forcing friendships. I can't tell you how much I regret not getting diagnosed sooner with anxiety and ADHD, because it just makes so much more sense of why I am the way that I am. And I think it would have saved a lot of anxiety attacks and just frustration with me feeling like I was crazy. My brain's just wired differently. I really regret how long it took me to start saying no and not feeling bad about it. I really have struggled with being a people pleaser, and I've learned that it's okay to say no to things and you don't need to have an excuse of why you can't attend something when in reality you just need a reset day. Probably one of the biggest things I regret about my 20s is even if someone hurt my feelings and said something that upset me, I would almost give them the benefit of the doubt too much. I used to absolutely suck when it came to communication in friendships and relationships, and I just would never voice how I felt. Also, if you struggle with that, something that really helped me was sending audio messages, because it didn't need to feel like this big sit down, oh my god, we have to talk about this thing that's bothering me. And it's hands down one of my biggest regrets of my 20s.
This is the biggest regret in my 20s. Don't make the same mistake as me. I'm first gen Filipino, which means I got good grades in high school, went to college, got a great job, and made a lot of money. But the one thing my parents didn't teach me was this. My parents didn't teach me about investing in real estate. So with all the money I made the first 2 years of my first job out of college, I wish I would have house hacked. House hacking is buying a house, renting out the rooms to your friends, and letting them pay down your mortgage as the property appreciates in value. If you're 20 years old watching this video, do this damn thing.
My biggest regret from my 20s so far was not finding a hobby that I love and am able to do by myself sooner. And I've always been someone who is super independent and could take myself on friend dates, entertain myself, do whatever. But I realized I never really had this one hobby, something that I was really passionate about and something that people would actually ask me about. I didn't really have this realization of how important a hobby is until recently. So let me just back up a little bit. So there's this pottery studio that I always walked past during the pandemic, and eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and sign up for the class and see if that's something I'd be interested in. I've always been a pretty creative person, and so it seemed like fun, and it was only like a 10-minute walk from my apartment. I took my first pottery class in October of 2021, and then I took a few more classes into the beginning of 2022 and fell in love so much that I actually ended up getting a studio membership and opening my own little shop called Bean Ceramics back in October of 2022. I don't know why it was so difficult for me to say October. And I've been posting on my Instagram story pretty much ever since I started my pottery class because I'm a Leo and I post a lot on my Instagram story. But basically I didn't realize how much people actually enjoyed watching me do this hobby until I opened up my little shop and created a new Instagram for it. And so many people, my friends and people I hadn't talked to in years actually ended up following it. I'm just continuously shocked because every single time I drop a collection, it completely sells out. And within like 24 to 48 hours too. Very proud of everything that I've made and, you know, the learnings that I've done, but I am by no means an expert and I have so much room to grow. And so it's just still so insane to me that my friends and family and people I don't even know are supporting me and buying my pieces. And I'm not saying you need to turn your hobby into a small business, by the way. But by human design, people love to talk about themselves, but also people love hobbyists and listening to someone talk about something that they're passionate about. I honestly think it's one of the few times that people actually listen to what you're saying. And like, if I'm out with my friends and we meet someone new, they bring that up as like a fun fact about me in front of me. It's weird, but also really cool. And it's really allowed me to connect with people in a deeper, more meaningful way. So that's why I regret not starting it sooner. Let me know if you also feel this way or what your hobby is below.